Hello everybody, this is Jason. Glad you could make it today. This workshop we are looking at the differences. It's called Maps in a Mirror. It's basically about UV mapping. It's the difference between using UV Mapper as a mapping tool and using the built-in mapping feature in Milkshape. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and hop over to the resource post for this workshop. Uh, Go ahead and grab the texture and the D8 object, and we'll get started. So if you look at UV Mapper, it's a really old piece of software. I believe it was introduced in 2004, and the latest update is 2008. So it's really rudimentary. So go ahead and if you have UV Mapper open, if you're following along, go Load Model and load up the D8. Okay, so it doesn't have a map yet. So what we need to do is create a map that's going to maximize the surface area. So if we go to New Map, we have in UV Mapper we have several options here. We have planar, box, cylindrical, cylinder cap, and spherical. So let's try out a couple of these and see what happens. So planar, we have a few options. We're going to leave the alignment the way it is and by orientation. So this is going to show us, it's going to map it on two separate planes. So yeah, that's not really great. So let's try something different. So we go Edit, New UV Map, and let's try Box. Oh, and here, let's not leave gaps in the map this time. So let's see what happens when we do a box. We're going to split the front and back, but we don't want any gaps in the map. So that is not ideal. So it has two faces here, and four faces here. I don't love it. Let's try something else. So we go Edit, New UV Map, and spherical, just for giggles. And it's going to be oriented on the y-axis. Let's go no gaps in the map. That's kind of... But because it's mapped as a sphere, it's going to be a little bit weird. So what happens when we do this? Let's go cylindrical cap on the y-axis, no gaps in the map. That's not what I wanted to do. Oh, because it's a cap, so it's mapping the top four faces, and then those are, or no, sorry, these are the top four faces, and these are the bottom faces. I don't love it. So let's go cylindrical, y-axis, no gaps in the map. Okay, so I believe this is going to be the best choice for this figure with this tool. So what we do is save model, just leave the settings as they are by default, and I want to distinguish between this and the Milkshape model, so I'm going to go D8 UV Mapper. Okay. So then we hop over to Milkshape, import the wavefront object, go D8 UV Mapper, and let's remove that wireframe overlay. So this one has already been mapped. So we go to the Materials tab in Milkshape, we go New, and why is it looking there? Let's grab that D8 texture, and select the group and assign. There it is. Okay, so it's kind of fun. It looks to be mapped a little bit strangely. Okay, let's minimize. And let's try it now in Milkshape. In Milkshape, let's just import the unmapped D8. Okay, it's pretty much the same deal, except this time it's untextured. So let's go to the group. Let's select, no, not the group. Go to the model tab, select. Now let's switch the selection method over to face. And it's a little bit different in Milkshape, but there are ways that you can map it more accurately. And I will show you that now. So let's start off with this face. And we go to groups and we hit regroup. Call that face 1. Okay, and then we can hide that face to make it easier to work with. So once again, we don't need to switch over to the model tab because we've already got it set to select faces. So grab these upper 3 faces and then let's unselect. So basically you're right clicking and dragging with the mouse, and that didn't do what I wanted to do. Okay, so we're only selecting this one face, and then we regroup and we'll name that one face 2. And let's hide that one. And we keep going. We grab those 2 faces. We deselect that one. We regroup. And let's name that one face 3. Hide it. And we face select once more. Regroup. That's face 4. Okay. Then, once again, select all of the 4 bottom faces. And we just want to leave that one. Regroup, that's face 5. Hide it. It's a bit more time consuming in Milkshape, but it can deliver better results. It completely depends on what you're mapping. So then we take that face, regroup, rename face 6, hide it. And now all we have left are these 2 faces. So I want that one to be face 7. Go ahead and hide that. And all we have left is default. So if we just select that, all we have is this one face. So what I'm going to do is move that down to the bottom and rename it face 8. Okay, and then unhide all. And then Control A to select all. Let's add our material. So with all of the faces selected, we import the new material and we go to assign. And it's doing something kind of funky. This is because it's not mapped yet. So now we go to Window, Texture Coordinate Editor. And it starts out with face 1 by default. So we're going to select front here in the drop down and remap. Okay, and then let's go to the scale button. I want to scale by 0.25 on the X and 0.5 on the Y, and then hit that S. That did not go as planned. Oh, because the Y is locked for some reason. Okay, so let's just lock the X. And what is happening here? I'm not sure what's happening. Let's see how it mapped face 1. Okay. That's a bit odd. So we might need to move that vertex. So go to the move button. We just went to, what happens if we go 0.5? No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, we need to move, so we need to move only on the X. So we go up here, we go 0.5. Oh, because the X is locked. I forgot. That's not what I wanted to do. So it has to be negative because we're moving it the other way, and we need to move it instead of half, about an eighth. Okay, there it is. I think that's correct. So now, if we minimize, except that for some, it's grabbing just a little bit of the other face here. So that's a minor annoyance. So what I'm going to do here, we need to move these two lines, but I'm going to lock the X so that it can't be moved horizontally. Then we go back to move, and we just scoot that little line up a little bit. Okay. And let's have a look at face 1. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now face 2. And we're going to remap, I think, toward the front. So let's select those 3 vertices. And then we're going to scale once more. Make sure nothing is locked. So it's 0.25 on the X and 0.5 on the Y. Just like that. And it's kind of not where I want it to be. It should be relative to the no. It should be relative to the entire texture. To the position of the entire texture, not to I don't know. I don't know why it did that. I don't know why it oriented itself that way. So I'm just going to do this the old school way. So we grab the top vertex, and no, actually let's do that mathematically so that it positions itself correctly. So we go minus 0.125. So we're moving it 1/8. Oh, sorry. Okay, so there, that's, I hope, in the correct position. Okay, moving on to phase 3. So we remap toward the front. Once again, select. We're going to scale 0.25 on the X and 0.5 on the Y. And it didn't put it where it was supposed to again. So we just scoot manually. We just eyeball it. And then once again, let's move that top vertex. Negative 0.125 on the X. Oh, that's odd. Oh, because I did scale instead of move. Okay, so never mind. 0. No, it should be negative 0.125. And then we move. Oh, because this is the backside, so it moves differently. There we go. Okay, so let's do phase 4. We remap the same way. And then we select all. And we scale the same way. No. 0.25 on the X and 0.5 on the Y. Oh, because I did 0.2. Not exactly what I want it to be, but... Okay, so now we can see the top vertex needs to go over to the right a little bit. Now, this one isn't negative, so we just go 0.125. Never mind, it is negative. It's just, that takes a little getting used to. Okay, so there we go. Those are the top ones. Now we move on to phase 5. So now we can see the triangle is pointed in a different direction. So we got to select, and we're going to scale the same. 0.25 on the X, 0.5 on the Y. And we've got to scoot it over here. We're just going to eyeball it. And then we just move that bottom vertex. Minus 0.125. Perfect. Okay. We just want to get it fairly, just rough it in essentially, and then we will mash all of the faces together and fine tune it. So we select those 3 vertices, go back to scale, 0.25 on the X, 0.5 on the Y. Then we just scoot it over. Then we need to move that positive, I think, 0.125, no negative value. Move. There we go. Then we go to phase 7. We remap. Select those 3 vertices. Scale. 0.25 on the X. 0.5 on the Y. There, whoa, we just scoot it where it needs to go. That one goes negative, so minus 0.125. Move. Nope. That one's positive for some reason. Okay. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but you just figure it out, I guess. So we remap that last one. Select the three vertices. Yeah, it's a built-in feature of Milkshape. Let me fix this face. Sure. Let me just fix this face and okay, this is 8, right? Yeah, this is face 8. So we just scoot that down. And then this one, if I remember correctly, it moves negative. No, it moves positive. 0.125 because I'm moving over an eighth. Nope. It's an easy fix though. Okay, so those are roughed in, but I'm going to need to fix them up a little bit. Okay, so let's move that down. Actually, let's close that up so I can show you. So what we do, first you need to add the texture. Just assign the texture to your object as you normally would. So what we do is select from the groups which objects you want to assign to each texture, then go Control A, hop over to materials, and then if there isn't a material there, like this one here, we would go new, then we select the material up in this text window here, and if you want to assign a texture to it, you grab that texture here. It's going to open a window, then you just select the texture, and as a final step, you go assign. And then, so it's Windows, Window, Texture Coordinate Editor. And we just pop that open, and from there we can edit the faces. We can do our own mapping, we can edit the faces. Okay, 5, 7, 6, and 8 are backwards. Okay, so let's go select none. I don't even, okay, so that's 1 and 3. And we're just going to regroup those. I didn't want to do that. So, and then hide them so that I don't select them again. So we need to find 2 and 4, and I think those are on the bottom. Regroup and hide. No, because it moves. When you regroup, it moves your regrouped faces down to the bottom. So we're just going to hide those two. So we're only looking at these 4 that are backwards. So now this needs to be flipped. So it's a little bit mathematical, but it's a fun way to do it. So let's move that 0.5 only on the x. Okay, so never mind that. It's negative 0.5. Okay, and then let's move that one. Also 0.5 on the x. Or sorry, negative 0.5. Nope. About 0.25. There it is. Okay, so now we need to move this about a quarter of the distance on the x. Perfect. So phase 3 is fixed. Phase 4, we're doing the same thing. We're going. So it's hard to explain, but we're flipping the face, but we're doing it in a way that's kind of mathematical. So we move this vertex like that, negative 5 on the x. Then we move the top vertex negative 0.25 on the x. And then we grab the whole thing and we move it one quarter, so 0.25 on the x. So we're moving the individual vertices in negative x, and then we're moving the entire face a positive value along the x. So we should see, yeah, those two are fixed. So now we just need to fix faces 7 and 8. So face 7, like that. And then move negative 0.25. And then we have to reselect it and move it 0.5 on the x. No, 0.25 on the x, sorry. And then we do it all again. We move. Sorry, minus 0.5. And then minus 0.25. And if this seems like a little too mathematical, you can just eyeball it. But I want to try to make this as exact as possible because it's a D8. Then we just move the whole thing a quarter distance over on the x. Okay? And there we go. Unhide all. Then let's select none. So let's grab that. Just want to grab the whole top half. Now we do the same thing with the bottom half. So we've regrouped the top and the bottom. And once again, let's go to the texture coordinate editor. Okay, so to square this up, this is a really cool trick. Let's select all of these vertices here, scale, and we want to go 0 on the Y. That didn't work too smooth, but what it does is it puts all of the vertices in the same position on the Y. Then we just scoot it back up to where it needs to go. And let's do the same with the top vertices. Just scale it to 0 on the Y. Then we can move that up. And these two, let's lock the Y now and scale these to 0 on the X so that why is it doing that? They're in the same position horizontally. Let's keep that Y locked and just scoot it back to where it's supposed to go. And let's square this up. Should be 0 on the X. And then just move that vertex back to where it's supposed to go. And let's square that one up. Okay, now let's have a look at the bottom. So what this is going to do is give us a nice clean map. All of the vertices are in the same position relative to each other. So let's move that. Let's lock the X and scale that to 0 on the Y. And then scoot that back down. And once again, 0 on the Y, which is the second box. And the X-axis is locked, so it can't move side to side. Then we just scoot that down. Just like so. See, we're trying to utilize as much of the map as we can. Okay, and then let's fix those vertices side to side. So we need to lock the Y and unlock the X, and then scale that to 0 on the X. Then just scoot that back where it's supposed to go. And the same thing, just scale to 0 on the X, and then move the vertex back to where it needs to be. And this last one here, we just scale that to 0 on the X. And we move that back. Okay, so let's see how it's looking in the 3D port. Looks pretty good. Except with Milkshape, I want to map it a little bit differently. So let's lock the X this time. And let's open that texture coordinator. So let's take the top faces and so it's locked on the X, so it's not moving horizontally. So what I'm going to do is just scoot this up. To make these numbers a little bit bigger. The numbers aren't bigger, but I'm using more of the face's surface area to project the numbers, if that makes any sense. And I'm not doing anything mathematical here, I'm just eyeballing it. Oh, no, we need to make sure that nothing is getting cut out. So I think that's about as good as it gets. Now we look at it and it's got bigger numbers. So what I want to do here is regroup these, and I'm going to rename this Milkshape, just so that we can see that's a lot more. It covers a lot more of the surface area of the face than the one that we did in UV Mapper. So let's hide that, and let's import the one from UV Mapper. Select, assign, and then let's move this one. Just scoot it on the, whoa. Just scoot it on the x-axis without moving it anywhere else, so that we can look at these side by side. There it is. See, there are two different techniques and they give you completely different results. Okay, so the other one was, I think 5. I don't remember. There it is. So there we are. That is an illustration of the differences between mapping in UV Mapper and mapping in Milkshape.